Which one of the following is not an illustration of criminal force? And then we have four options. A spits over B, A removes the wheel of a lady, causing annoyance to her, A shakes his fist at B, and A pours boiling water in the bucket from which B was bathing. Now, we are concerned with use of criminal force. Where is this defined? This is defined in section 350, use of criminal force. Whoever intentionally uses force to any person without that person's consent to commit an offense or intending to cause injury, fear or annoyance to that person. So there must be use of force, first requirement, and second requirement is that it must be without that person's consent, and the third requirement is that this use of force must be either to commit an offense or with the intention or knowledge that it will cause injury, fear or annoyance to that person. These are the three requirements of section 350. First requirement is intentional use of force. What is meant by use of force? That is defined in section 349, use of force. A person is said to use force to another, and then we have two acts which may be characterized as use of force. The first type of act is if he causes motion, change of motion or cessation of motion to the other. So if one person causes motion or change of motion or cessation of motion to another person, we will say that the first person has used force on the second person. But it need not always be related to the second person directly. Use of force will also be there if the first person causes motion not to the second person but to a substance in such a way that that substance comes in contact with the body of the second person. So there are two types of acts which may be characterized as use of force. Firstly, when the first person causes motion or change of motion etc. in the second person directly. Second is when he is not touching that second person but he is causing motion to a substance and that substance comes in contact with the body of the second person. Now in our question, let's see. A spits over B. In this option, is there use of force? A is not causing motion to B in any way, but what he is doing, he is causing motion to a substance. What is the substance to which he is causing motion? His own saliva, and he throws that saliva on B. So the substance comes into contact of B. So here is a case where the second type of action is there. A is causing motion to a substance, which substance thereafter comes in contact with the body of B. Second option, A removes the wheel of a lady, B causing annoyance to her. So here also the motion is to a substance and that substance is in contact with B. Third option, A shakes his fist at B. In this case, there is no motion to B, but there is a motion to a substance. What is the substance? His own body, his own fist. But is the fist coming in contact with B? Since this is not coming in contact with B, this will not amount to use of force at B. And the fourth option is A pours boiling water in the bucket from which B was bathing. Here the substance to which motion is caused is water, and that water is poured into the bucket from which B was bathing. Strictly speaking, this substance to which motion has been caused, that is the water, the boiling water, is not coming directly in contact with B. But at least this water is falling into a bucket from which B is taking water for his own purpose use. So of these four options, Option C seems to be the correct option. Here there is no use of force. Since there is no use of force, there is no use of criminal force either. But strictly speaking, causing motion to a substance so that the substance comes in contact with the other person is not the only requirement for characterizing it as use of criminal force. That is use of force, all right, but not necessarily use of criminal force. It becomes criminal. The use of force becomes criminal when it is being used without the consent of the person, and also if it is intended to cause annoyance to the other person. Now, if we take option D, A pours boiling water in the bucket from which B was bathing. Now, even if we say that this amounts to use of force, is it use of criminal force? Use of force becomes criminal if it is done without the consent of the person concerned. We do not know whether B's consent is there or not. Secondly, it is possible that the water which is already there in his bucket is very, very cold and he wants that water to be warmed up. So he might have asked A to pour boiling water in the bucket so that overall it becomes convenient for him to take his bath. Maybe it's winter time. So the facts as given are not complete to characterize option B as use of criminal force. From this we see that when options are to be given, proper mind has to be applied and proper facts have to be given. But our purpose here is to choose the best option or choose the option which is most obvious, most correct. In option A, B and D, at least there is use of force. In option C, there is no use of force, and when there is no use of force, there cannot be any use of criminal force either. We will say therefore that option C is the correct option. In fact, A shaking his fist at B, this is an offense, and this offense is defined in section 351. This is assault. When some gesture or preparation is made with the intention that this gesture will cause any person present to apprehend that he is about to use criminal force is said to commit an assault. Now the gesture here is shaking of the fist. If the intention is to cause apprehension in the mind of the other person that criminal force is about to be used, then we will say that it is an assault. Intention, of course, is very important. A shaking his fist at B by itself does not lead to any offense. We have an illustration to this section which clearly uses the first part. A shakes his fist at Z. Now this by itself is not an offense. So once again I would say that the option given in that question is quite incomplete, but in any case, if the shaking of the fist is with the intention or knowledge that this act will cause Z to believe that A is about to strike Z, then it will amount to the offense of assault.